President. Members will please remain standing while the Chief Executive enters the chamber. The Chief Executive. The Chief Executive will first address the Council. Madam President, thank you for giving me this opportunity to meet with members. Today is a bright sunny day with blue sky. Well, I don't have the microphone. Oh, it's here. But before I take questions from members, I'd like to first say a few words on our economic development, in particular on sustaining our economic growth, because I believe this is an area of the greatest concern to the SAR government as well as the community at large. Our economy has been seeing recovery. We're about to be at our economy is about to be at our best in years. So in the less stringent circumstances, we should look ahead and work for the well-being of the people. We should pay attention to sustaining our competitiveness and actively map out our future development. Hong Kong is a highly open economy. We must have regard to external factors as well as our own adjustment capabilities in the face of the opportunities and challenges brought about by globalization, regional integration, and the high growth England. Since the reform and opening up on the mainland, the modernization drive has achieved great success. China is increasing force to be reckoned with in globalization process. In the past quarter of a century, GDP growth on the mainland has been on average 9% per annum. From 1978 to 2005, the population in poverty has dropped by $220 million. It's regarded an economic miracle around the world. The country started the implementation of the 11th five-year plan, and in macroeconomic growth, there's going to be at a relatively high pace, but also steady at the same time. And it's expected that GDP growth will be 7.5% on average. By 2010, the GDP will amount 20,100 billion renminbi, yuan, which is about 3,200 billion US dollars. That could mean China would rank third in the world. And total import and export from China last year, 2005, it was 1,400 billion US dollars. It's expected that it will rise to 2,700 billion dollars in 2010. There are few skeptics who think that China will not be able to achieve this growth rate in the next 5 years. In fact, the sustained growth momentum of the mainland is beyond doubt. At the same time, in the 11th five-year plan, there's going to be a new development model for the country. There are new objectives and also there are new missions. And we are going to see many different changes on the mainland, which are different from what we've been seeing in the past 20 years. At the end of March, when I attended the last question and answer session of this council, many members asked about the impact of the 11th five-year plan on Hong Kong. There was also discussion in the Commission on Strategic Development on this matter, and we attach great importance with the philosophy and the content of the 11th five-year plan. Last year, when the plan was being prepared, the SAR government actually put forward our views to the central government. In the past few weeks, I've been reflecting on the plan. I could feel the immense impact the plan may have on our current direction and strategy in our economic development. So I see a need to re-examine our follow-up work on the 11th five-year plan. Firstly, in the 11th five-year plan, it's stated clearly that it's going to be a managed floating exchange rate. It's going to be perfected, and then there will be a gradual move towards renminbi capital account convertibility. At the same time, on the mainland, in the financial businesses like banks and insurance companies will see integrated reform, and also there'll be active development of the capital markets in the areas of securities and debts. And also there's going to be a relatively fast pace of growth during the 11th five-year plan period. And of course, it will involve a large amount of funds, so there are plenty of financing opportunities. Also, the renminbi is exerting its increasing influence on the world as a whole. And also the country's foreign exchange reserve totals $800 billion, and the international market is attaching increasing importance to the financial market on the mainland. And this is an area with keen competition. Secondly, the transition of China's accession to WTO is basically to be completed within this year. And in the 11th five-year plan, there is increasing emphasis on driving growth by boosting domestic demands, in particular in domestic consumption. And these policies will be improved, and there will be a better consumer market. And also, the increasingly affluent mainland market will have an increasing appeal to various products and services. And thirdly, the plan stresses the need to switch the mode of economic development from an investment-led one to one that focuses on efficiency, and there will be heavy reliance on technological advancement and homegrown innovation capabilities. There will also be promotion of upgrading of industries and further faster development of services. And fourthly, the plan has also spelled out binding indicators to require conservation of resources and protection of the environment, so that it could move towards a sustainable development. The environmental pollution knows no boundary, and this is a question of great concern to all sectors in Hong Kong. We're glad to see that our neighbor, the Guangdong province, has formulated the provincial first-class 11th five-year plan on the basis of the national plan. It proposes to build a green Guangdong, and by 2008, the sulfurization will be completed for a coal-fired power plant of 12.5 megawatts or above. And also there will be control and regulation on vehicle emissions. So by 2010, there will be a reduction of 10% in total pollutants from emissions. Fifthly, the 11th five-year plan emphasizes coordinated regional development, so that there will be better coordination and collaboration, also division of labor among regions like the Pearl River Delta region, Yangtze River Delta region, Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei region, and so on. They could complement each other's strengths, and there will be overall upgrading of competitiveness. At the same time, there will be further development of economic special zones, special economic zones, and in new areas like Pudong of Shanghai and Binhai in Tianjin. So the 11th five-year plan has looked beyond administrative boundaries and gives full play to the strategy of overall development. In Hong Kong, we've also noticed that there is a mention of Hong Kong in terms of its role and function in the new five-year plan. And it's stated that the collaboration between the mainland and Hong Kong and Macau will be strengthened in the area of infrastructural development, industrial development, resources deployment, and also environmental protection. And also there will be support for Hong Kong to develop its financial, logistic, tourism, and information services to maintain Hong Kong's position as an international financial trade and shipping center and so on. And so that is what we see in the plan.
The plan also confirms the advantageous position that we enjoy, but then we can see that with the emergence of China, the several centers that Hong Kong have been in the past would also have to move forward. In fact, we are facing tremendous pressure, and we have to move forward, or else we'll be lagging behind. For example, Hong Kong is the international financial center for China to go out to the world, and we are also somewhat different from other international financial centers in that our state currency is still not freely convertible, while the Hong Kong currency is freely convertible, and therefore we are highly different from New York, London, and Tokyo. And in terms of enhancing the convergence of renminbi with the international community, Hong Kong will be faced with tremendous opportunity, and our unique condition provides us with good system and facilities and also comprehensive financing services, and therefore we will be shouldering a greater responsibility for our country, and we will be introducing a series of renminbi business, and those will also be deepened, and in enabling the renminbi to move forward into the world, Hong Kong will be playing a important role as an international financial center, and we will also be working closely with renminbi, and given Hong Kong system expertise and knowledge, how we can help renminbi to move into the international community while saving or safeguarding the financial security of our state. That is what we will have to explore. We will also have to look at the related derivatives with effective risk management, and we will also have to accumulate constructive experience, because all these will have to be looked into. And Hong Kong being an international trade center, we have been playing an intermediary between the mainland production regions and also overseas markets, and we have been very successful. The plan will also be expanding the strategies and also increasing the domestic demand, and given the strategy, we will also be increasing our importance on the mainland's consumption market. But whether or not we'll be able to enhance our competitiveness in the mainland market in particular, under the effect of CEPA and also the WTO's transitional period, when it is moving towards the expiry of that, will we be able to take advantage of that? And also with huge number of Hong Kong enterprises on the mainland in the past, they were used to massive in and out operational mode, and in the face of the pressure to upgrade their production, their industrial upgrading, and also the restrictions imposed to protect the environment and conserve on energy, are we able to meet the demands for increasing homegrown innovation technology? And there will be more challenges. And given the advantage that we enjoy in our service industry, we will also be able to explore more development opportunities, and we will also have to face the competition from late starters, and that would also enable us to climb the high value-added ladder by maintaining our status as a leader while continuing to enjoy the fruits of economic growth. This will also provide us with a new subject for our commerce and trade, and also the supply chain management businesses. Next, on Hong Kong's status as a shipping center, and there will be a more urgent need for us to enhance our status, and we have been looking at the major source of goods from the mainland, and the plan also provides that there will be a number of major projects in transport and traffic, including the newly constructed 17 kilometers of new railway and also 2.3 million highways to be built, and these will be linking up different provinces, and there will also be expansion of many ports, including Shanghai, Ningbo, Fuzhou, and as well as our neighboring Shenzhen and Guangzhou. This will also bring pressure to bear on diversifying the sources of goods. In terms of air cargo, Hong Kong's international airport does enjoy an advantage, but then we also have to complement our airports in Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Chengdu under the 11th five-year plan. We also have to look at how we can complement the mainland in air cargo business so as to promote mutual development. As far as sustainable development is concerned, there have been indicators formulated with regard to conservation and environmental protection, and there is a demand to build a society which conserves on resources and also be friendly to the environment. This will also be closely related to Hong Kong, and we wholeheartedly welcome these initiatives. We will also have to enhance our cooperation with our neighboring regions so that there could be more planning, and we have to be more closely involved so that Hong Kong can restore the blue sky and blue waters that we were used to in the past. The plan will have a tremendous implication for Hong Kong, and there is also a sense of urgency, and therefore we will have to have sufficient discussion in the community so that we can reach a consensus as soon as possible. We will also have to formulate the policies and strategies on this, and therefore after discussion with the Financial Secretary, we have decided that we would be organizing an economic summit on the 11th five-year plan, and we will have to work together with the best brains in our economic sector so that we can come up with strategies and proposals. I prepare to invite representatives from the public sector organizations and also the business sector, as well as economic experts, academics, and labor experts, and they will work together with myself and Mr. Tang so that we can look at how we should respond to the 11th five-year plan. And these subjects include, in the process of the renminbi moving towards free convertibility, how Hong Kong can play its role as an international financial center, and given the differences and distinction between Hong Kong and the mainland, how we can enhance better exchange and also interface between the industries, and on the basis of the existing technological infrastructure and institutional framework, how Hong Kong can tie in with the mainland's efforts in enhancing its homegrown innovation and technology capability, and how Hong Kong can make use of its own advantages in promoting the mainland's development in moving towards enhancement in terms of both quality and quantity, and what kind of insight we can gain as an international financial trade and shipping center from the 11th five-year plan, and also what kind of challenges are we facing, and what kind of tactics should we adopt in coping with this. The summit will be held in September, and we will have to look at different needs. For example, we will have to look at their goods needs, and also their shortage in energy, and so on and so forth. And these will enable our country to move into the international market to purchase these commodities. So who will be playing an intermediary role? Will Hong Kong be able to have a share? And we will have to work harder in this regard. All these issues, I hope that can be resolved and explored at the summit, and the summit hopefully can be held by September, and the summit will be the starting point for the subjects that I mentioned earlier, and we will have in-depth discussion on all these subjects, and we will also have to follow up on all the issues, and we will also have to work out which bureaus, departments, advisory bodies, and also business sector, and also other related personnel who will be responsible for the follow-up action. And we will also have to compile a work plan with clear objectives and practical follow-up actions. And the SAR government will be working together through the various effective channels with the different central authorities, as well as ministries and commissions, as well as the Pan-Pearl River Delta Cooperation Forum and the Hong Kong Guangdong Cooperation Joint Conference, and as well as the different provincial governments. And we will be following up closely on the recommendations of the summit. The work can be completed within the first part of next year. The brainstorming session will be promoted jointly by myself and the Financial Secretary, and the summit will be somewhat different from the policy address and the budget, because the scope and horizon will be very clearly different. The summit will be a pragmatic discussion forum for experts, and it will be dissolved after the discussion on the plan, and the terms of reference will not be duplicating that of the CSD. The CSD will be focusing on macro strategy, and also it will be proposing development directions, and therefore the two will be complementing each other. We will have to put our words into action. We will have to enhance we will have to tie with the momentum of strong growth in the mainland. We will have to gain strength for our own development, so that we will be able to ensure that the good days for our public will last. And we will also have to make specific contribution to the modernization of the country. We will have to strive to reach a basic consensus on a future direction and strategy for economic development, and no doubt legislators will also have to play a special role in implementing these special measures. Thank you.
26 members are on the queue to ask questions. Now, after member has asked a question and got an answer, there could be a short follow-up, but a short follow-up should be limited to within the scope of the answer given by the Chief Executive. You could only seek elucidation on that answer. Mr. Lee Kwok Lun. Mr. Chief Executive, now in the committee we see elder abuse cases, elder suicide, and also wrong administration of drugs in elderly homes. So that So that will hurt the dignity of the elder. So what is your philosophy on elderly policy? It seems that in your policy address you did not say much on that. And also, how is the government preparing for the impact to be brought about by an aging population? Well, there are several aspects. Now, this is part of the process of an aging population, of a population aging, and of course we are faced with a major challenge. At the Commission on Strategic Development, there's a discussion, and also under the Chief Secretary for Administration, this issue would also be tackled. Now, we cannot avoid an aging population, and actually we're increasing our resources on elderly services year to year. And of course, it's not a task for the government alone. Now, there are various government departments, policy bureau, and there are professionals in this council. If you see where we need to do more, we could always formulate a long-term strategy. Of course, we already have the Elderly Commission. We have established channels to look at these various issues, and our experts will tell us what we can do in the medium term and in the long term. So this is a long-term issue. We can't just say that we could cover everything in just one discussion. I very much hope that colleagues of this council and scholars will help us map out a new strategy to tackle an aging population. Mr. Lee Kuan-Lun, Mr. Chief Executive, what is your own philosophy on elderly policy? Well, I'm moving towards my senior years. And of course, it's a question, a matter close to heart to me and to many people in the community. And of course, we will only attach more and more importance to the issue. And when it comes to resources distribution, we always consider carefully how much resources we should give to elderly services. Now, of course, at the same time, in Hong Kong, we are faced with the question of our competitiveness. Now, we are talking about a local population, but what about new resources like imported labor, and then we have a new immigration policy. So we hope then elderly people, especially the able-bodied elderly people, would continue to contribute to our economy. And of course, for elderly who need to care, we'll see how our facilities and policies could achieve that, and that's definitely something we have to do. So I look at this issue most positively. Mr. Martin Lee, Mr. Chief Executive, I hope you don't mind if I could bring you back from a bright future of the country to our modest SAR, if you may allow me to ask a question on people's livelihood, that is electricity tariff. I think Hong Kong is ranked second in Southeast Asia in terms of our level of electricity tariff. And you know, my constituents and the president's constituents, doesn't matter if they you know, restaurants on the Hong Kong Island or just elderly person living in Taiwan, they pay 30% more than people who say live on Kaduri Hill. So are there any measures to open up the power market so that we can pay less in electricity tariff, and also the electricity tariff across the territory could be, you know, standardized? Well, there have been two rounds of consultation on opening up the electricity market. And then next round of renewing the scheme of control agreement with power companies, we'll have to consider the conditions to be imposed, and of course we may also bring in suppliers, new suppliers. Of course, electricity tariff is part of our household expenditure. We don't just look at the tariff per unit, we also have to look at electricity tariff as a share of our household expenditure. And then you see in Hong Kong, we don't fare so badly as compared to other places in Asia. But of course, at the same time, we realize electricity tariff is a burden on households, and so we try to keep all these basic living expenses to the minimum. And I hope that there will be a concrete plan to be drawn up so that our market is more competitive, and at the same time, when power is generated, there won't be any negative impact like environmental pollution. Now, of course, I hope that after this review, where there is parity in electricity tariff, the issue could be addressed as well. Mr. Martley? Now, if you spend $2.1 billion, there will be interconnection across the territory. But otherwise, the government, central government office should move to Kowloon because that will save you a lot of electricity expenses. Well, we are actively looking into the issue of interconnection, but it's not really for the government to say whether we want to do it, because we're talking about investing taxpayers' money in interconnection between the two power companies. And first they have to overcome all the technical hurdles, and also they have to consider their own market strategy. So it's just not as straightforward as just putting in taxpayers' money. It's really a matter for the two power companies. As for the central government office, well, if we move it to Kowloon, I wonder if LegCo would want to move with us. Well, because we're so close, And how come we are in Kowloon and you're in Hong Kong? And then also the high courts are in Hong Kong. As I said, the three could not be separated. So as we try to address the issue and we talk about us moving to Kowloon, I think there are difficulties. But I'm glad that the DAB, and in fact, even the Democratic Party are beginning to see perhaps there's room for consideration there. Mr. Abraham Shack, if I could pick up on Mr. Lee Kwok Lun's question. Now, a young man asked an elderly man a question. Now is an elderly man asking an elderly man a question. Now, the chief executive told us about how he would address the question of an aging population. Okay, now our economy has recovered and is actually developing well. And we have a group of elderly persons and disabled who cannot share in the fruits of our success. There is a group of elderly CSSA recipients and disabled recipients who've seen their CSSA payments cut in the past few years. Okay, now our economy has recovered. We've actually exceeded our original targets. So within your term, Mr. Chief Executive, would you consider restoring the CSSA payment for these people to the 1998 level? That's the first question. And secondly, if you do that, let's say, well, it has nothing to do with your seeking a second term, of course. We are talking about showing our care for our senior citizens and people with disabilities. On CSSA and cash subsidies, every time when there is an adjustment, there always would be a lot of controversy. Last time when we made the adjustment, that's because the income across the community also dropped. It was a painful adjustment. I'm fully aware of that. And this year we are fortunate that we have $14 billion of surplus. But let's not forget a few years ago when we had a deficit, some over $190 billion, just were lost. So if, of course, social spending is one area we attach importance to, but it's not really for me alone to dictate what to do. There has to be consensus in the community. But I thank you for your suggestion, and particularly for the disadvantaged. We do need to care for them, and we'll see how we could help them.
Mr. Kwong Chi-kin, thank you, Madam President. Chief Executive, just now, after hearing what you said, it reminds me of Ed Goodall's saying that is, if China is doing well, then Hong Kong will also be doing well. We also hope that our grassroots will also do well. Well, the labor sector's demands are very clear, and I'm sure you're very familiar with them. Well, we are talking about the two types of jobs, that is the cleansing workers and also the security guards. They do not have the ability to protect themselves. Yes, I understand that the CEO have been saying that you've been working very hard to increase their employability. All right, we are very familiar with those, so you don't need to rehab those arguments. So once again, I'd like to ask you this, and if the administration not going to legislate to protect the minimum pay for these two industries, then how can you seek our support during your next election? Well, I agree that in terms of legislation, we have to work in that direction, and I hope that we can adopt a pragmatic approach. And in the course of legislation, we need to have a consensus, and therefore we need to seek a consensus on this very controversial subject. And Mr. Kwong, I have to say that I'm not really that optimistic. So a more realistic approach is that we have to strive every opportunity so that this kind of exploitation of workers, in particular, those paying very low wages, which are way below CSSA payments, we will have to consider how we can tackle the problems. And of course, we will have to adopt a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, we have to extend the practice in the administration and also in the public sector. That is, we will have to introduce a minimum pay for these workers so that could also be included in the contracts. At the same time, at the Labour Advisory Committee, we will have to look at how we can regulate such practices or regularize such practices. Would that be feasible so that that could be translated into laws? But then if when it comes to legislation, we need a consensus. It's not about the causal relationship. It's not about the discussion between two parties. And I'd like to deepen that discussion. I do not want to see a situation arising whereby non-skilled workers' pay would fall below the CSSA payments, because that is not only unfair, it's also deceiving the taxpayers, because the taxpayers' money will be drained into the CSSA system. So we will have to adopt a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, we'll be continuing our discussion with the LAB, and we'll be working towards legislation so that we can reach a consensus. And secondly, in the pragmatic level, we will have to strive harder so that the current standards or standard contract approach could be more extensively used so that could safeguard the interests of the workers. I'm very pleased to see that the labor market is becoming more active, in particular the manual labor market. So the declining trend has been arrested. We hope that with the revival of our economy, we'll be able to bring up the pay or wages for the lower strata of our community. Mr. Kwong Chi-kin. Thank you, Madam President. Because of time constraint, just now the CE did not have to say what he just said. I just would like to ask the final part of my question, which has not been answered. All right, without legislation, how we can get the support of the labor sector? We haven't had the reply from the CE. I can only work hard because legislation is not within my control. I can only propose that. But then before I can do that, we need to have public support. And that is also very important, Mr. Kwong. I hope that we can reach a consensus within the community, in particular within the LAB. If we can create a consensus, then everything can be done. All right, you will have to work hard. I also have to work hard. I know what I have to do. But then please do not say that, okay, I have to get the support from other people before I can move on. I think that would be something into the future. But then what is most urgent is how we can improve the living standard of the workers. That is most important. Mr. Lam Wai-Kang. Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, Chief Executive. Just now you said that during the past 2 years, our economy has turned around the corner. I hope that with your continuous efforts, we will have more opportunities for business development. Last year, you talked about reducing the size of the closed area at the boundary. So I'd like to know if this rural piece of land in the new territories could be developed so that there could be more coordinated development across the at the boundary. Well, I think that depends. By the end of this year, we will be looking at how the closed areas could be reduced in size so that more land could be released for other developments. But then along the boundary, amongst the various types of businesses, I understand that according to the existing mode of development, they are being promoted already. So other than looking at these new expansions and also new developments, the most important thing is for us to look at for example, places like Luowu, and also across the boundary that is Shenzhen, and also at Lok Ma Chau across the boundary is Huanggang, and also towards the west we will have the interface of the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Corridor, and also the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge. In the surrounding areas, there would also be some developments, and those would be done. And the SARG does have the responsibility to ensure that once the infrastructural projects are going to be implemented, we will have to have more supportive developments so that economic development could also be promoted. For instance, when we develop the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Corridor, there would also be opportunities for us to look at whether or not we can develop parking facilities and also consumption market development. So we will definitely be seizing those opportunities, and we will also have to look at the container terminals development with the construction of the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Macau Bridge, and we'll be seizing those opportunities. And every time when a major infrastructural project is to be implemented, we will definitely be doing more planning, and we will also be working on the development projects, and we'll definitely be doing those. Mr. Lam? Chief Executive, I hope that once the mechanism is triggered, you'll be listening more to the relevant district council as well as the Hung Yi Coast views, definitely. Mr. Chin Pui Chong? Madam President, Chief Executive, in the past, in public opinion polls, you've always rated very high in terms of popularity rating, even though I personally do not trust such a popularity polls. Well, in the past, other than the West Kowloon Cultural District and also the Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge, other than these issues, which subjects do you think that you can claim credit from the public, and therefore they should support you? Well, I dare not say so. I dare not claim credit for anything, because I don't think I should blow my own trumpet. I think the public will have their own assessments, and they would if I give top ratings to the 3 major achievements that I've made, then definitely they will think about the 3 worst things that I've done. So sorry, I'm not going to assess on what I've done best. Mr. Wong Yong Kan? Thank you, Chief Executive. Chief Executive, you might not know what I'm going to ask. But still, I have to press ahead with my question. Just now, you said in your opening remarks that the state is embarking on new developments, but then with the 11th five-year plan, the state is attaching a lot of importance to agricultural development. I wonder if the chief executive will also learn from the state so that he would attach more importance to agricultural development. A few days ago, some farmers took to the streets because there has been a lack of subsidy for them for their loss in business. All right, if they go out to fish, then they will have to get subsidy because they wouldn't be able to make a living. So how are you going to help them solve this problem? Of course, I'm grateful to you because you've been asking your colleagues in the government to use the $250 million to help them solve their difficulties. But then that would not be sufficient. So I wonder if the government will, under your leadership, to help the agriculture and fisheries development industry to have more sustainable developments. We really hope that you would also be able to go to meet with the fishermen and also to visit the fishermen in Aberdeen. Well, yes, during the election campaign, I understood that I got massive support from the egg and fish sector, and I'm grateful to them. But then obviously, a reality in our community is that we are not like the mainland. In the mainland, farmers accounted for about over 50% of the total population in the mainland. But then in Hong Kong, they only account for a very small proportion of our population, and they are subject to a lot of pressure. And the opportunities for doing business and creating job opportunities would be limited. So that's an undeniable fact. The only thing that we can do is to provide more support for them. For example, we have introduced the $250 million loan so that they can do something during the moratorium on fishing. But then we hope that there can be a more sustainable way out for them. It's not just investment or assistance from the administration, I believe the sector itself will also have to think of a way out so that we can work together. We will also have to convince them. For example, if they need policy support, then we can also consider that very positively. If they have short-term need for any financial assistance, then we can talk to the FC. But then the most important thing is we have to be sure that that will definitely be able to help the fishing industry and also the fishermen. And we will have to implement those if those are confirmed to be the case. And I'll be more than willing to meet with the fishermen, so we'll make an appointment, all right?
Mr. Wong Yong-ken, thank you for agreeing to find time to meet with the fishermen. But, you know, the number of fishermen is one thing, but those to be affected, you know, is another. I hope you won't render fishermen a burden to the SAR, of course. Mr. Longfat. Madam President, if I may ask the Chief Executive. Last month, the government published the consultation paper on District Council review. It proposes that the District Council will be involved in the management of district leisure and cultural facilities. Now, these facilities were previously managed by the two municipal councils, and also there were facilities on food safety and environment hygiene, like markets and abattoirs. Well, these are closely related to the quality of living and our safety, but there's no mention in the consultation paper. Would you consider also allowing District Council to be involved in managing these other facilities? Well, in our consultation paper, we've made it very clear that in the area of minor works, community facilities, like leisure and cultural facilities and community planning, there could be something to be done first, and hopefully there will be some achievement, and then it will instill more confidence in the public. And then with more involved in managing these facilities, we could nurture more political talents. And also, if this proposal is to work and that it will enhance the efficiency overall, then hopefully I'm sure the public will agree to expanding the scope of the District Council's involvement. But I hope District Councils will first seize upon this opportunity to give their best to this particular task, because there is a public consensus on this task, and then that what you said would be the next step, and that's probably a natural development. But we have to first instill confidence in the public. You can see from many opinion polls that there is support for the proposal, but then there are others still with doubts. So we must first convince these people this is the right direction to take. And so I hope the district councillors will put in their best in the task, and I'm sure there will be room for adjusting their functions and roles in future. Ms. Mandy Tam. Chief Executive, welcome to this council in a bright sunny afternoon. If I could talk about air pollution. During the May 1st Golden Week, we saw a blue sky in Hong Kong that we rarely see otherwise. Many believe it's because during that week, the factories in Guangdong province were closed, and so our air quality improved. But of course, there's no way for us to prove if this is true. But the question of air pollution in the Pearl River Delta region does have an impact on the quality of our environment, also on our competitiveness. So would you consider liaising with the Guangdong provincial government so that you could come up with a cross-boundary air quality improvement plan as soon as possible? If you have such actions, so what exactly have you been doing? Well, actually, in 2002, we've already got a framework on total emissions in Guangdong. Well, there's a list of different pollutants, and there are targets, for percentage reduction. So we've set targets to be achieved by 2011. And then within Guangdong and in Hong Kong, we also have monitoring stations set up to monitor the pollution level to see if there's any improvement. So this is something we've been doing and we'll continue to do. And that's not all. I'm very encouraged because the 11th five-year plan has made Guangdong province to build a green Guangdong. I mentioned that in my opening remarks, and I think they will go further than the targets that we have set. So the air quality in the whole region will benefit as a result. Of course, there is rapid economic growth on the mainland, and there's also rapid industrial growth. And so air pollution was more serious than, say, 10 years ago, sometimes with different wind direction. Of course, during the winter, is northerly wind, and we will be affected more. I don't know if the Golden Week is the reason, but in recent days, as you can see, we are seeing a lot more blue sky, and I hope that will continue. And I think we also need to do something here in Hong Kong. Last time, some members asked me if I knew about PM 2.5. We're talking about really fine particulates, and that affects the clarity, in the atmosphere. And now we realize the importance of these particulates, and we find that these particulates actually come from petroleum byproducts. That means there is need to do something with power generation, especially and also with vehicle emissions. And it seems that we've got it right, in our policy. And we hope in Guangdong province they will also do the same, so that we have better visibility. And that's something we are working on. We will strengthen the measures, and wherever there's the opportunity, like in the case of the 11th five-year plan, we'll strengthen our work further. And we'll continue to discuss these various issues with the Guangdong authorities. Ms. Mandy Tam, Mr. Lee Chak-yen. Thank you, Madam President. Chief Executive, just now you referred to economic development. Our Premier Wen Jiabao talked about the plight facing the farmers and lack of education opportunities. Now, when you talk about economic development in Hong Kong, I wonder if you have in mind the poorest sector and the lowest paid workers in our community. Now, in the past year, I suppose we could sum it up this way: it feels good, your governance, it feels good, but it tastes bad. That is, the people may feel good, but actually don't benefit much from your people-based policies or your strong governance for the people. Now, okay, you talk about the bright prospects we have, but in terms of strong governance for the people, what have you done in the past year that is different from what Mr. Tong did, and that you really put your heart to it? Like on minimum pay, standard working hour, you have done nothing. Just now, Mr. Abraham Sheikh asked you about elderly CSSA payment. You also your answer was in the negative, and there's no public housing rent reduction. There's no small class teaching. And you're saying you want to increase the fees on medical services. So, in the past year, what have you done really in terms of strong governance for the people? What have you done for the people? So people don't just feel good; they actually see that you are working for them. So can you please answer that question? Just now, I told Mr. Chin Pui Chung it's difficult for me to, trumpet my own achievements. It's really for members in this council, members of the public, to make the judgment. Now, our economy is improving. Average income has gone up. And all the indicators, have improved, including air quality indicators. So I hope it's not really the case that people taste bad. And on minimum wage and so on, it's not that we haven't done nothing. We need to, some have suggested we need to legislate, but other than legislating, have we done anything? Yes, we have. In our standard contract, we have enhanced protection for the workers in terms of wages, and more people are benefiting from this measure. We have government contracts, and then even NGOs contracts, and I understand MTR contracts also have built in this clause. So more are benefiting, but have we done enough? It could never be enough. As for the elderly, we will continue to provide services to them, and certainly we will not be cutting resources there. So I think the answer is in the minds of the people, in response to your question. Of course, with limited resources, there is only so much we could do as a government, but I don't think we should be that negative. We ought to be more positive. Wherever there's room to do something, we definitely will do so. Mr. Lee Chak-yan, if you go for your job interview, you want to seek a second term, I think the people know what their choice should be, because in your reply doesn't look good at all in a job interview. Okay, so it was blank in the past, but in the coming year, would you undertake to do something? Perhaps I could give you a suggestion. Just now you talk about the economic summit. You said it's not a duplication of structure. It's to complement the Commission on Strategic Development. What about a People's Livelihood Summit? Put your heart to it. You invite experts on people's livelihood, on welfare services, those who are so concerned about concerned about these areas like you are concerned about economy. Could you do something like that?
Yes, I think there is a valid point there. So you can also ask on my behalf. Dr. Yong-Sum. Thank you, Madam President. Chief Executive, economic development and also manpower resources development and investment cannot be separated. While Hong Kong's birth rate is declining, and in fact, every year, the government manages to make a lot of saving in education spending. So given the opportunity, will the administration do it in stages and also by regions or districts to introduce small class teaching and also give us a timetable on when that can be done? Thank you. Sorry, Dr. Yong-Sum. Over the years, I don't think we have cut our spending on education. No, that has not been the case. If that is the case, Arthur Lee wouldn't let me off the hook. In fact, in terms of our spending on education, in fact, every other policy secretaries are concerned whether or not we will be increasing our spending on education. In fact, if you look at our spending on education, it is now accounting for some 23% and close to 24% of the total spending of the government. It's almost 1/4 of our total spending. And Dr. Yong-Sum, I can reassure you that within my term, definitely that spending will not be cut. In fact, we believe that this is a good investment, and therefore we have to put in more resources. But as to how those resources would be deployed, of course, we have to strive for consensus. And of course, I'm sure Professor Lee would also have his own plan. With regard to small class teaching, we have debated that on many occasions within this council. We have also talked about that many times, and we do have plans to introduce that. And we also have plans to introduce that in stages within the limited resources that we have. Definitely that plan will be expanded. But then given the resources, on the one hand, we have to increase the resources, but then in the face of other pressure, Professor Lee also sees that there is a need for the introduction of the new academic structure, and also we will also have to do more for the teachers. So we will have to ensure that there will be sufficient resources for all these new plans. We have already started the plan, and I believe that I will not be backtracking. So it's a question of pace, and that will also have to do with resources. Madam President, of course, I'm in the education sector, so I know the details. Well, you have not reduced the funding, but then every year you have not been able to spend all the resources. For example, Professor Lee would know that basically some $7 billion would go back to the Central Reserve. And last year, you closed more than 100 primary schools. That was the savings that I referred to earlier. So this kind of saving, well, without increasing resources, you can make use of the resources saved. In fact, there is a very pragmatic plan that you can consider, but then you didn't answer the question. I've done some homework. I've got some concrete examples. You don't have to increase resources. For the savings that you managed to save, you can do that in stages, and also by districts. You can introduce more class teaching. I never asked that you introduce that across the board immediately. You can go back and come up with a more concrete timetable. That is speaking from my heart. Yes, we do have plans. We are doing that in stages, but I think the difference is about the timetable, and there is a lot of controversy about a timetable. Also, it's not about the increase of resources. Arthur Lee didn't say that, well, under particular subhead, all the resources will be spent and nothing will be left. In fact, under the new 334 structure, we will have to have new resources, and he has already come up with a new policy, and that is widely recognized by the community and accepted by the community. Where do we find the resources? And what about subject teachers teaching specific classes? I believe that everybody agrees that this is a new policy and good policy, but where do we get the new resources? So we will have to redeploy the resources from a certain area so that those resources could be redeployed to other areas. We will have to work hard together. With regard to small class teaching, we have already taken the first step, and I believe that the first step cannot be taken back. We will have to move forward, and the trend will definitely continue. Mr. Wang Kwok-hing. Thank you, Madam President. Chief Executive, originally, I had intended to ask about paternity leave. I hope that you can pay attention to that, but then that has been disclosed prematurely. But then in your answer to Mr. Kwong Chi-kin's question on minimum pay and also standard working hours, I'd like to ask a follow-up question. I'm glad to hear that you said that the administration can put forth the proposals. I'd like to know when you would be putting forward the legislative proposals and timetable, because putting forward legislation is the responsibility of the administration. You don't have to worry about whether or not the legislation can be passed by this council. It's our responsibility. But the reason why we have to have legislation, that's because of the link read incident. Originally, we wanted to merge 3 into 2, and there would be increase in work hours and there would be a reduction in pay. But then we petitioned them and we staged demonstrations, and this council also would like to summons all the management from the link read. But then subsequently they decided to defer the merging of the 3 shifts into 2 shifts. So I'd like this chief executive to answer my question. Since you said that you could put forth legislation or legislative proposals, I'd like to know when and what is the timetable. In fact, the LAB, the labor representatives, 6 votes are all in favor of that. And according to some opinion polls in the community, 60 to 70% of the public are in favor of that. So we are lacking the administration's vote because the administration is also has a seat on the LAB. So I hope that the CE can answer my question. I'll try. In the past, for the more controversial subjects, when I try to put them before this council, both sides would blame me. Well, I won't be just criticized by one side. In fact, both sides would criticize me because one side would say that, well, how come you put forth proposals that you know full well that they would not be supported? That's why during the consultation level and also at the professional level, we hope that we can reach some fundamental consensus. My intention is very clear. I fully understand the aspiration of the labor sector for many years, but then I also know that within the economic sector, there would also have to be other considerations. The only thing that I can say is that I believe that this subject has been debated on numerous occasions in this council, and I dare not say that I can come up with a timetable very quickly. I hope that you can accept my explanation. That is, I do wish to do something about this issue, and I hope that you can allow me to work harder on this. Mr. Wang Kwok-hing? Well, for any legislative proposals, if the administration wishes to propose them, definitely there would be controversy or contention about this. This is a historical reality. For example, you made a decision of introducing the 5-day working week within the civil service. If you had to go about the consultation, that would also be a controversial subject. Why is it that for the cleansing jobs and also the security guards, they do not have bargaining power and they are the most disadvantaged group? Why haven't the administration taken the lead? Because you said that that could be proposed. So I'd like the CE to answer our question. When would you be proposing the legislation? Indeed, we have already taken the lead to do something about it. For example, in the standard contract, I've already said that the administration has already taken the lead to do so, and we are encouraging people to follow suit. But then you talk about the 5-day working week. The reason why I said that, well, you said that I made a decision because we do not have to legislate. If we had to legislate, then that would be very difficult to implement a 5-day working week. That would be a very controversial subject because it would affect all the parties within this council. Yes, this might be a policy favored by everyone, but then when it comes to legislation, when it has to be presented before this council, there would be a lot of other considerations. And I hope that for minimum pay, this is a highly controversial subject, and many economists also raise a number of questions. So I hope that you would give the LAB an opportunity, and also employers should also be given the opportunity to think through it. Yes, I've already stated my view. Well, wages should not be below the CSSA payments, or else that would not be fair to the entire community and also to the taxpayers. I hope that my view is clear enough. I hope that I'll strive to do better, and both you and I will have to work together. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, Chief Executive, during your election campaign last year, in your political platform, you said that you would like to build a harmonious and stable society. And our President, Mr. Hu Jintao, also talked about the importance of that. But then earlier on a radio phone-in program, you talk about the importance of tilting towards the closer friends. In fact, it's a normal phenomenon. That is, when we have ruling parties, when a particular party is in power, definitely it will be consulting the party members' views. But then in Hong Kong, you're not willing to amend the current legislation to allow political party members to become chief executive of Hong Kong. And at the same time, you also attended personally the Central Executive Committee's meeting of a particular party which is closer to you, and you've also appointed members of that party to the advisory committees. You've also asked your subordinates to attend their retreats and camps and so on. So while you said that you would be advocating for a harmonious and stable society, and at the same time you would also have to rally together all the different sectors of the community, would that also contradict with what you said?
Well, at least we've got this question, right. We've tipped this question. This morning, my colleague said definitely this question would be put to you. And definitely someone would ask about paternity leave, but Mr. Wong refrained from asking that question. It's disappointing. But anyway, this is a serious issue. I must give you a serious answer. Now, fostering harmony in the community is definitely something that every government strives for. Is always the objective. And like President Hu is the same. He shares in this goal. And I'm sure that's what the people want too. So definitely I cannot shift this policy objective of mine. Now, in recent weeks, there's a lot of discussion about the need to distinguish closer allies from the less close allies, I suppose. If I could say this, in our system, when it comes to the relationship between the executive legislature, there is clear division of labor. There cannot be, we cannot steamroll our way as executive. We need to work together with the legislature before new policies could be implemented. If the SA government is to win over the support of the people, when we formulate and implement policies, we have to have enough public support. Without that support, whether we have closer allies or less close allies, that would mean nothing. So when we have public support, then the executive must then support the work of the legislature so that we could formulate new policies and map out new directions for Hong Kong. So I will continue to keep up communication with the various parties and individual members of this council. I will continue to listen to their views because we want to secure the support of members. We want to have reach a consensus in the community. Otherwise, it will be difficult for the government to implement any policies. But communication is a two-way street. There is a need for interaction, for any communication to yield results. And if there is interaction, if there are constructive dialogues, definitely, then we can build good relationships. Now, in recent weeks, there's this mention of, the need to distinguish closer allies from the less close allies. I think that's a political reality in modern days. And that's about sharing common values and about agreeing to disagree on different strategies, and also it's about, you know, arriving at consensus or the consequences if there is a lack of consensus. I think everyone in politics has his own sets of values on matters like freedoms, you know, democracy, social justice, and so on. And then to give play to these values, and then we will have to consider the measures to take, of course. So when we talk about the philosophy of our policies, yes, we may share the same values, but to achieve these ideals, there may be different ways to do it. So that's why there are different political parties in the community. As the chief executive, of course, I also have my own set of values on our development, like a free market, market-led economy, a clean community, rule of law, democratic development, caring for the disadvantaged, and so on. I'm sure my values are very similar to the values of many political parties, but when it comes to the formulation of actual policies, then it's inevitable that some people see, you know, have more similar views than others, like Mr. David Lee. Mr. Martin Lee, they sit next to each other. But I believe, my view is that their political beliefs are probably diagonally opposed, right? It's like the Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Mr. Lau Chin-shek. On people's livelihood issues, they probably share similar views. So you can see, you know, differences and similarities, they really rest with different philosophies on policies. And if we share the same philosophy, the same values, it will be easier for us to secure support from those members. So whether I'm closer to certain parties or less close to others, it has nothing to do with my own personal feelings. It's rather a natural development in political reality. And we can arrive at consensus with different political parties. We could build a partnership. Well, you can see that's what every government has to do, and Hong Kong is no exception. But where we have consensus, there must first be public support. We need to build our consensus on the basis of public support, because the consensus has to be people-based. Now, if we talk about reaching political consensus, it doesn't mean that we have to exclude anyone. And as long as any political party supports the philosophy of the government, I will encourage them to set aside the differences so they could strive for common grounds, and then we could reflect the aspirations of the people. In that way, we could justify our legitimacy. Now, of course, when you choose different roles, that could lead to differences. Some choose to be opposition camp, and it doesn't matter if government policies are reasonable or not, they would just object for the sake of objecting. They aim to undermine the credibility and the authority of the government. They just try to boost their own image. They try to wool the media. Whether there is any philosophy behind their opposition, it doesn't really matter to them. Now, so I can't put much hope that I'll be able to convince them. It doesn't matter if I try to pander them up to them. Every day I try to, you know, give them favors or whatever. It doesn't matter. I won't get anywhere. So that's why, as the chief executive, I have to be honest with the different positions of political parties. We also have to listen to the views of the opposition camp. We have to explain the government position with patience. We have to tell them we have public support, and so we have to try to get them to understand the position. So it's all about interaction. I think as we do anything, we always have to choose our own partners, and you also have to choose the roles you want to play. But let's not forget, ultimately, we are all here to serve the people of Hong Kong. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Chief Executive, you are definitely a politician. Could you please let us have your text so we can all learn from it? You know, in the last part of your speech just now, you mentioned the opposition camp. In fact, in the past few months, you always refer to the term opposition camp. Now, in a politically mature community, you mentioned party politics, you mentioned, you know, in almost everywhere there is the ruling party and the opposition party. So an opposition camp is a normal phenomenon in a politically mature society. So my next question is, how do you work with the opposition camp to foster harmony in the community?
All right, as I said, I'll be listening very carefully and also we'll be stating our stance very clearly. And as I said, our stance is that we will have to base our policy on public support. And even if the opposition camp wishes to oppose, they would not be able to win public support. They will not be able to get media attention. I think that is also that is not just the approach by our administration, but also the approach adopted by any administration. When I referred to opposition camp, I was saying that that would be an inevitable product in any society. But then we must not overdo it, because for policies or strategies widely supported by the community, but if the opposition camp does not support them, then the public would also alienate you. It's not just the administration; the public would also do the same. Similarly, if government policies are not supported by the public, and if we force through those policies, and if we bulldoze those policies, would not just be abandoned by political parties but also by the public. That's why I hope that my policies would be strongly supported by the public, and also I'll try to foster the support from the different political parties so that they would accept my views, including the opposition camp. I would work harder in this respect. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong. Thank you, Madam President. Chief Executive referred to the 11th five-year plan and also the ambitious plans. I think that's most encouraging to us. With the opening up of the mainland China for the past 20 years, many of the production procedures have moved northward, and the number of vacant units in Hong Kong's industrial buildings have been increasing. And according to some valuation, it means that it can be translated into some $7.5 billion in terms of public funds being wasted. So should we take measures? For example, we should relax the usage restriction on industrial buildings so that enterprises could be encouraged to develop and start their businesses in industrial buildings. And also for factory buildings, they should be redesigned and redeveloped so that their ability to increase value could also be improved, so as to resolve the problem of excessive vacancy rate in factory buildings. So would you be amending the legislation so that the definition of a factory could be changed or be widened, so that the design, research and development, and also financial management, procurement, production, planning, and logistics, and also quality control, and so on, all these non-production procedures can also be defined under the term factory? Can that be done? When I talk about the 11th five-year plan, I was not just talking about the businesses being done and also the promising future that Hong Kong might see for itself. In fact, we have to consider the potential stress, and we will have to find ways out so that we will not be marginalized. In fact, I fully agree with what you said, both in terms of theory and also the overall strategy. In fact, that is our policy for any factory buildings that has many vacant units. We will try to see how we can reduce the vacancy rate, and if there are any plans that could help us achieve that target, we'll definitely be doing that. In appropriate circumstances, we have been doing that already, but then if we have to change the law, as you said, to include office accommodation, research and development, and also marketing, and so on and so forth. If everything can fit in that definition, then there will be a harmonization between factories and office accommodation or office building. That would also give rise to a host of problems. But then what you said could be explored. That is how we can make the best use of existing factory buildings. We have already started the process. That is, we will be more flexible in the usage of factory buildings. That would be extended to factory buildings, in particular in older districts, Tai Kok Tsui, Kwai Chung, and so on. They have many old design factory buildings, so we will try to be more innovative, and I'm sure my colleagues would be more than willing to look into that. But then we have to know what is needed in the market. Thank you. Dr. Fernando Cheung. Thank you, Madam President. I find it difficult to agree with what Mr. Sin just said about the chief executive. He called him a politician or a master of politics. But then after the constitutional reform package has been rejected in this council, apparently the chief executive cannot just let it go. But then I'd like to start with economic development. I think we have already seen a very good development momentum. But then many mainland policies are very advanced. For example, they have minimum pay for years, and they have already got a universal retirement protection system, and that's been implemented for years, and it's also very successful. And for the elderly and also people with disabilities, if they take public transport, it will be free of charge. And recently, our MTR system will be extended to Shenzhen, and when they go there to implement the project and also undertake the management. Last time when you brought us with you in the visit, we also asked the questions. That is, the railway project would also be free for people with disabilities. So I'd like to know, in Hong Kong, we do have disability allowance, but then for people with disabilities, actually, they can't afford medical or healthcare expenses. So I'd like to ask the chief executive, you personally, are you in favor that, do you agree that Hong Kong's public mode of transport should provide or offer concessionary fare to people with disabilities? Thank you. With regard to welfare, we are not a welfarist state. We cannot just compare ourselves with a welfarist state because we are a capitalist society, and the operational modes are different, and we are not comparing the like with the like. But then what is before us is, when we talk about the advantage of a certain system, you talk about the MTR system's management. You know it very well why Hong Kong's MTRC has been invited to undertake the project, because they know that Hong Kong does have an edge in certain areas in our railway system. And in terms of public transport, we do have a lot of strengths, and many people are learning from us worldwide. But then we must not take on a heavy burden so that all the public modes of transport, like overseas countries, they will have to have strong government subsidy. And I don't think that would be beneficial to Hong Kong. And at the end of the day, even people with disabilities might not benefit from that. Well, you say that, well, people with disabilities find it difficult to afford medical costs. I don't think that is the case. I hope that that is not the case, because our policy is that nobody would be denied proper medical care or health care because of a lack of means. So in Hong Kong, while we have an aging population, the average age is increasing, but then our healthcare system is still doing quite well. With regard to transport subsidy for people with disabilities, my personal view is that if they have to be supported, we can use other forms of subsidy or support, because we should not distort social policies in order to achieve certain goals. For example, for education policy, we have to do something about it. But then if we try to do it in a distorted manner, when it comes to different policies, we may not be able to achieve the most desired effect, and even the beneficiaries themselves might not be happy with that. The most important thing is Are they properly supported? Are they fully supported by all the parties concerned? For example, the family members, the communities, and also economic support for them sufficient? We should look at those. We should not just say that, all right, they need to take public transport. We'll have to think about concession rate fare. Perhaps we should think about that from the personal perspective. For example, do they need to do that? Do we have to help them to do that? I think that would be a more useful approach. If we distort our transport policy or other policies for that purpose, for example, education policy, that would give rise to long-standing or long-term far-reaching implications. And for CSSA, we have already got a system. We do not want to increase medical costs, but then that would also affect our healthcare policy because we have already got some problems in that area. So we will have to look into ways of resolving the problem. But then this is our responsibility, everybody's responsibility to help those in the disadvantaged group. And it's the government's unshakable responsibility. But then I'm not sure if we should change our public transport policy in order to help them. Thank you.
Dr. Fernando Cheung. Just now the Chief Executive referred to travel concessions for people with disabilities. You said you can't really compare our system with those overseas. But actually, in all advanced capitalist countries, they have the same system. So they are very similar to us in other ways, but not in this way. Now, you said that no one would be denied medical services due to their disabilities or lack of means. But actually there are such cases. Many, well, there are people who have to pay for certain medical expenses, and for families with people with disabilities, the burden is heavy. Well, I'm concerned that you may not know very well about the needs of people with disabilities. Like for people who need renal dialysis, they may have to pay for the fluids themselves, and they have to queue up a long time to get a dialysis. Now, you say you are very concerned about the disadvantage. I hope there will be opportunity for you to meet with the disabled, so you will get to know their needs, and then you'll see if there is transport concession for them that will help to foster harmony in the community. I've been meeting with them. I'll continue to go and meet with various groups. But, you know, you mentioned that there is travel subsidy in advanced countries. But I must say that in most advanced countries, the public transport systems have to be subsidized by taxpayers, and I hope we won't have that in Hong Kong. Our transport policy is such that many think that we're doing fine. So perhaps we should consider ways to help people with disabilities. That might work even better. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Madam President, I have prepared a question for the Chief Executive on half fare concession for people with disability. But Dr. Cheung just asked a similar question. Now, if I could now ask another question, because you said something about the opposition camp, so I'd like to ask you something. Just now you stressed that the opposition camp opposes for the sake of opposing. Now, in your reply on, you know, distinguishing those who are closely allied, those who are not, and you say you rarely have a chance to communicate with the opposition camp because of different positions. Now, I'm labeled a member of the opposition camp, but I've rarely been consulted by the government. There were rarely opportunities for communication with government. So on what basis and what evidence do you claim that the opposition camp opposes for the sake of opposition, and that there is no philosophy or there are no justifications behind their opposition? And also, when you refer to opposition camp, are you trying to blame the opposition camp for the sake of blaming them? If that's not the case, why don't you just focus on your policy objective, fostering harmony in the community? Why don't you keep an open mind and foster a dialogue and communication with them? Why didn't you do that? You know, so what was the past experience or past evidence to prove that? Mr. Leung, could you please come to your question? I haven't got your question. You know, you've spoken for so long. Can you please come to your question? You could leave a debate to another occasion. Now, I made my point very clear. I asked the chief executive, you know, on what evidence did you claim that the members oppose your policies for the sake of opposing? I did not say that opposition camp opposes for the sake of opposing. I'm just pointing to a political reality that is in every community, in every open society, there are politicians who oppose for the sake of opposing. That's just a fact. And in the SAR, we see there are policies supported by the people, by the majority of the people. Still, there are others who oppose them. You know, even with the best policy, if there is 70% support from the public, that has to be considered a brilliant policy. But still, there are another 30% people who oppose that policy. So it's nothing unusual. And some people, you know, they are just stubborn. They support it. But if you say that a policy has to be perfect before it can be supported, well, I'm afraid we can't do that, Mr. Leung. But I hope that when a policy is supported by the majority of people, it ought to be supported. It shouldn't be opposed. If you oppose it because that's your own position, even though if it is a policy supported by the majority of people, so you oppose it so that it cannot be passed in this council, well then it's just a move to undermine the credibility and the authority of the government. So you are putting your own values before the values of the general public. So that's the picture I'm trying to depict. When I'm referred to opposition camp, that's what I mean. And I've seen this happen in Hong Kong. And please don't be too concerned about this, because it happens in every society. I'm just, you know, I hope you refer to my answer again. I said even if this should happen, I'm hoping that we are able to explain fully our position and why we insist on our policies. And I would like to also explain that we have to support the public to put forward a certain policy. So that's something we will continue to do, to try to explain our position. But when a policy is proposed, I hope members don't expect that it would be perfect, because a policy has to be a result of compromises among different sectors. And there are bound to be flaws in a particular policy. And you say because there are flaws, so you that you will overrule that policy. I don't think that's in the interest of the public. So if we really want to foster harmony in the community, it has to be that we give full play to the common wish of the people. And then there will be less cases of people opposing for the sake of opposing. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Well, I consider myself a member of the opposition camp because the chief executive said that there are different airlines, you know, some are closer and some not so. And so I believe I don't get the treatment of, you know, being consulted or being a subject of communication. That's why I believe I'm in the opposition camp. But just now you said when you decide whether a policy is supported by the public, you always say you put forward a policy because it's supported by the public. But when the opposition camp opposes a policy, they also say the same thing. That is, there is public support for them to oppose your policy. Do you agree that's the case? So you're saying that you have public support, and there is also public support for the opposition camp. So when it comes to important sub-matter, what do we do? Like in the case of the constitutional reform package, what should we do? We should then consult the public. And that's why we said in the past, we suggested in the past that there should be a referendum. Mr. Leung, have you finished with your short question? Now I'm coming to my question. So would it make things clearer? Then you don't have to say label me as the opposition camp and I say something else. Well, can we not just leave it to the public? Mr. Leung, can you please come to your question? Please refrain from making comments, because I would like to allow another question from a member. It's almost 4:30. I'm sure the Chief Executive won't mind taking one more question. So on important issues, would you say that instead of saying that we oppose for the sake of opposing, you would just leave the matter to the public to decide? The public are making such decisions day to day. As long as we will listen to their views carefully, as long as we put their views first, we've done opinion polls and we know what they want and what they don't want. Of course, when we implement policies, we're talking about public support, not just from a few members of the public, but from the majority of the public. You know, as I said, even with this public support, even if it's the best policy, that we could only secure perhaps just 7% of the support of the public, and there will still be 30% of people who oppose that. So, as an entity dealing with such people's livelihood issue, should we not make choices? Must we take extreme position? Must we say that my view is before the views of the public? Otherwise, and that's why we have this labeling of opposition camp and close allies, friends and foes, or whatever. So as long as you go along with the people, then you are not the opposition camp. That's the simple logic. So there's still time. Mr. Tam Yu-chung, last question.
For some members of this council do mind that they are being labeled the opposition camp. That's why they asked this question. I have this question. I don't know if you're prepared for that. All right, recently there have been press reports about the Tuen Mun Park. All right, there are people who like to sing and dance, but then there are these residents in the neighborhood who file complaints. So what problem has arisen from this? That is in the NT West as a result of many grassroots living in those neighborhoods, and also there are more retirees in the district, and therefore they would like to have more space so that they can relax and exercise, so that there could be more interaction amongst different people, so that they could enjoy themselves. But then we do have a shortage of such open space. And it's also very difficult to apply for venues for hosting such events, and sometimes they will have to pay for the rentals. That's why they are using the parks there. So with an aging population, the administration will have to identify more open spaces so that these sites could be made available for people who like to sing and dance, so that there would be places for them to enjoy themselves. In particular, in the NT West, you have so many sites available. So can you identify more sites for these purposes so that you'll be able to meet the needs of the public? Yes, I think that should be done. Mr. Tam, if you're not clear about that, in fact, during the past 2 weeks, every morning, we have the morning prayer session. As you're aware, starting from 8:40, we will start the prayer session. And also in Tuen Mun, about the open space and factory buildings, we've been discussing that every morning. All right, we start to do something, you ask people not to sing, and then you'll be criticized by them. But then if you allow them to sing, then you'll be criticized by the others. So whatever we do, we will be criticized anyway. So it's very difficult for us to meet with the members of the public. But then my position is, all right, it's okay for you to sing, but then if you use loudspeakers, that's not okay. You can enjoy yourselves. It's very easy, because there is no problem for you to enjoy yourselves, but then you're using loudspeakers so that everybody can hear you. And that would be somewhat difficult, because it's not that we do not have the space, but then they think that the space is not appropriate, because people cannot hear them, and they think that it's not right. So I think there is something to be desired, but then I'm somewhat sympathetic to the general public's views. We have to respect others in doing what they want. All right, they might wish to sing, or they might like to dance. It's okay. And the administration does have the responsibility to provide the venues for them to do so. But then they will have to control themselves so that they would not be causing nuisance to others. They will have to respect one another before we can have a harmonious society. With regard to NT West construction of community facilities, we will continue to work hard. I understand that there is a direct link between this and people's livelihood. As you can see in the public works project or program, we have a number of projects in the new districts, and we have already put in place these facilities. And in Tuen Mun, it isn't a problem of a shortage of open spaces for people to sing Cantonese opera, but then when they use loudspeakers, then more people will hear them. And when there are more people hearing that, and then they would regard that as a noise nuisance. So we'll also have to respect their right to sing. We also hope that this group of people would also respect the neighbors and residents' desire for more tranquilance. Yes, in Tuen Mun there is space available, and if you can put in some hardware, for example, you can have some cover, and you can also have noise barriers so that they would be somewhat segregated from the residential developments. We do have space available, so can you consider those options so that more facilities can be provided? Yes, we do have that, and we have already made some proposals. For example, in particular, for those people who like to sing Cantonese opera in Tuen Mun. All right, thank you. A total of 16 questions have been answered by the Chief Executive, and the Chief Executive will be leaving the chamber. Will members please stand? Thank you.